April 21st, 2022. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons why a city person is going to die in SHTF. Remember what I told y'all about SHTF? Shit hits the fan. Societal collapse. The police are not coming to save you. No one's going to come save you. You're in your house or your garage or under your car hiding, waiting for the cell phone services to work, right? There's 5 reasons why I believe city people will not make it in that atmosphere. And I may be wrong, but I'm going to take a jab at it. You guys and girls tell me what you think about it. Now, in the prepper community, or the people who focus on prepping or talk about prepping or talk about things hitting the fan and things going bad, there's a huge focus on firearms and ammunition. And I think that's to the detriment of the prepping community. I don't care how much guns you have, you only have 2 hands and 10 fingers, hopefully. I don't care how much ammo you have. If you cannot shoot or hit what you're shooting at, it is pointless. And we see it time and time again. People who are in this community or people who think they're a prepper, and they talk about the first thing, I have so-and-so gun. Oh my God, those type of conversations I hate to have, because there's an order of operations when it comes to prepping, and there's some things you got to put first. And it's not weapons, and it's not ammunition. The first thing should be water. The second thing should be food. The third thing should be shelter. The fourth thing should be security. Security including weapons, right? And so, most people just have this, it's like a fantasy of just running the streets and shooting. It might come from video games. It might just be a Warzone fantasy, like a Call of Duty Warzone fantasy, where you just jump out of a plane and you hit your parachute and land on the floor, and you have all your weapons on you, and you have 1,000 rounds of ammunition on you, and you just run and shoot. That's not reality. We're talking about long-term survivability, and you have to be able to sustain yourself. The most important thing to prepping will always be water. 5 gallons per person per day for sanitary and drinking. Water. Very important. So it's not firearms. I don't care how many guns you got. Most of the people that live in the city that I know that have a lot of firearms, those are safe queens. They sit in a safe. You don't shoot them. You don't know their capabilities. I have friends and I know people who buy a gun and put it right in a safe, never shoot it. You don't know how proficient you are in it. You put a scope on it, it's not zeroed, right? You don't know what type of ammunition your firearm likes to shoot. So if you're gonna focus on firearms, you should at least know those things. But firearms are not gonna help you in societal collapse. Firearms are not gonna help you get off the grid. No, you're not gonna go into the woods and start hunting. You do not know how to skin an animal. You do not know how to cook an animal. You will not learn when things hit the fan. You will not. Please, if you take anything away from this podcast or this video tube, take this away. You will not learn the things you need to survive when it comes time to use the skills. You do not rise to the level of your expectation. You fall to the level of your training. And if you have not trained, and if you have not put yourself in scenarios where you need to use the skills that you should be acquiring daily, you will not be able to hit your target with your rifle or with your pistol. You will not be able to hunt. You will not be able to trap. And you damn sure won't be able to fish if you don't fish already. So this is all fantasy. And I just want to get it out the way, because we're not going to sit here, talk prepping, and then start pulling out all these guns, and I got a lot of them. But I'm not going to start pulling them out and be like, hey, look at this. Look what I got. This 300 blackout 10.5 inch. Oh, look, I got a 5.7 caliber, whatever, Ruger 5.7 I got. We're not going to talk about those things because those are important things and important tools, but that's not prepping. And so when it comes to firearms, huge focus. Most city people do not know how to shoot. I go to the shooting range, I see the craziest stances. You're off the paper. If you look at these videos online, there's a lot of criminals that run around with these guns. They jump. I've seen crazy things. Like I've seen guys jumping and shooting, like hopping on one foot and shooting, backing up and shooting. Do you understand firearm dynamics? Do you understand shooting dynamics? These are the questions. Like if you're gonna have a firearm, know how to use it. But the point is, it shouldn't be the focus in prepping. And the first reason why you're gonna die when shit hits the fan is because you focused on guns.
You blew it.
And you thought you was gonna shoot your way into some food. You thought you were gonna shoot your way into some water. And you thought you were gonna shoot your way into some shelter. And you found out that there's a lot of people out here that have trained and that know how to hit a paper plate at 100 yards with a 30-round magazine. Hashtag Connecticut. And you thought you were going to shoot your way with your little pistol into someone's territory when they have rifles. And they've trained and they're proficient. That fantasy that you have, city goer, let it go. It's not gonna happen. You're gonna get hurt. Bullets fly both ways. And when you meet people who are prepared and you're not, I'm telling you right now, they're also prepared to use that tool and they know how to use it. Don't do it. That is not a plan. Stop with the focus on firearms. Lack of self-sustaining skills. And these reasons kind of overlap. But there's been a real, since coronavirus 2020, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but since then, there's been a real focus on like, oh, people should get their own land. And I love that. And I think everyone should own land. I'm a big proponent on that. But there's a lack of self-sustaining skills that most city goers have. We don't know anything about water and its preservation. We don't know anything about water catchment. We don't know anything about planting. We don't know anything about how our weather impacts plants, how disease impacts plants. And so one of the most important top 3 aspects of prepping is food. And if you do not know how to grow it, you will not be able to feed yourself and your family. If you do not know how to catch water, to drink it, to purify it, you will not have water for you and your family. You can't, long term, you cannot store water. You can't keep bottles of water in your house for 10 years. That just doesn't work. You have to be able to replenish water. It is easier to catch water than it is to hold water. Remember that. And so you got to invest in rain catchment systems. If you live near a river, know how to purify. Keep things in mind. If you live near a river, everyone's competing for that water. There might be people who poison the water. People might die and end up in that water, right? You can't really purify water that people have died in. You need to do reverse osmosis on it. There's been times where there was just natural disasters in this country and the water table was contaminated because of the death and disease in the area, and people couldn't drink natural water. So what happens when you can't drink the water that's on the water table? When it gets contaminated by dead bodies, people in it, using the bathroom in it, you can get very sick and die. And these are things to know, and these are skills that you must have. And us growing up in the city, me, myself included, I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, lacked the skills to be able to sustain ourselves. Like I said, we don't know how to plant. These are things to think about. I'm not going to start a class on YouTube on how to plant, how to catch water, but we don't have the skills because we've subcontracted the city to do it for us. The city you live in, make sure you get your water. The city you live in, make sure you get your electricity and your food. What are y'all going to do without electricity? Some people need electricity. There are people on oxygen tanks that get their oxygen and they derive it from a machine that needs an electrical current to breathe. What happens when there's no electricity? I think I saw a CDC report where there was like the most disastrous thing that could happen to our country that's likely is an attack on the power grid. And if the power grid goes down, the first 90 days, somewhere around 40% of the population is going to suffer disastrous consequences, like including death. The hospitals are down. And so electricity is an important thing that we never really think about because we just come home and it's already there. The things you never really think about and you take for granted, those are the things that mean the most. Electricity is something that we really need. How do you have any plan for that? How are you going to capture electricity, that energy? Do you have solar panels? And so, once again, these are things that we don't think about because we live in the city. Water, food. It's one thing to stack food. I'm a big proponent on stacking rice. Hashtag stack rice. But that's a cushion, right? If we have these cushions in our home, that's the cushion that we can eventually stop using our rice reserves. Or if we run out, we have a system in place. We grow in rice. We're catching water. You should consider that. That should be something that's in your mind. The third reason I think city folk are gonna fail when things get bad is we don't really have a pulse on society. We don't know what's going on around us. We don't know what our government's doing. We don't know what the world governments are doing. We don't care. We think CNN and Fox News are the only source of information. We look at it like a Twitter feed and we continue on with our lives oblivious. Lack of intel, lack of information, and a lack of area study in the place that you live will be the detriment of the city person. Know what's going on in your neighborhood. Know what's going on in your town or city, in your state, in your country, in the countries. Have a pulse, have something on the pulse of what's going on in the world. What happens in other countries affects us here. China's on their third or fourth lockdown. It's impacting our supply chain again. What is it impacting? Electronics, the things that they push out the most. At least understand. And listen, if you're not an electronics person or if you have things squared away, there's something that's going to impact or affect you. And so, understand what's going on with these world governments, with NATO. Many city folk don't heard of NATO, don't know what it is. Have no idea. You don't even know how the country's ran that you live in. You don't know what runs it, how it's ran. Look at your local government. Start there. Care about it. Care about your neighbor. Care about what happens in your town, in your city, state, country. Care about the people. We don't do that. We don't do a good job at that. And it just may be a New England thing. Because when I go south, they care. It just might be exclusive to up here. That's why we're the New England Prepper Society. We're going to change all of that. We're going to start caring about the people here. I promise you that. And hopefully I get the message out through this. Care about the people. Care about your society. Care about your government. As a prepper, or as someone who's prepared, I want things to go smoothly and I want things to run. And like I said, we love rule of law. We want the law and the government to stay in place. We don't want to overthrow it. Even though I don't agree with a lot of politics, but I don't want to get into politics here. It's not really appropriate for what we're talking about. But more importantly, understand that you can do something to contribute to your society and work on that. I have a conversation daily with people. I'm in a group chat with people who have really no idea what's going on. And if they do have an idea, they don't know what they can do about it. I'm not a fan of knowing information that you can't do anything about. If aliens are going to come down, abduct us, and take our adrenochrome, there's not much that we can really prep for that outside of when you see them, it's on sight. So we're not going to sit here and talk about things that we can't control. We're going to focus on the things we can. And what we can do is prepare for a supply chain disruption. We know China's going down again on lockdown. Okay, the things that are imported from China, let's just stack a few more of that. If you're running a business and you know you need supplies and your supply chain comes from China, stack a little bit more of that. See if you can get 6 months supply before things really shut off. Same thing with oil. Oil's impacted by the war in the East. You've seen firsthand how that impacted us. Something that happened way over there is hurting us here. And so yes, if your question has ever been, what goes on in Europe or Asia, does that impact us here? Your answer is yes. The question was, does that impact us? The answer is yes, it does. So don't be oblivious to the things that happen in the world anymore. And don't look at it from the standpoint of, there's nothing I can do about it, John. There is something you can do about it. Prepping is not about hoarding things. You don't race to stack a bunch of items in your house. It's about the long-term, minuscule stacking, the micro stacking of the things that are important to us in society. And it takes years to get to a place where you now look at what you have and you say, this is enough to sustain us for 6 months or a year. And it may take years for you to get there. But know what's going on and take that serious. Number 4 reason, a softened sense of reality. I've heard reports, and I follow a lot of Instagram pages from people in Ukraine just to see what's happening over there. And I've heard reports early on in the war that people on the other side of Ukraine still did not believe Russia was in their country. And Russia full-scale invasion in their country, that was going on. And Ukrainians were like, I still don't believe it could happen to us. I think they're going to stop. These are people with a softened sense of reality. At the time of recording this, I think there's about 5 million people who fled Ukraine after the invasion started. That tells me that 5 million people did not believe, even though we had months and months of reporting that Russia was going to invade. The US, Russia was going to invade. They have all these people at your border. They have tanks, they have artillery, they have blood, fresh blood in case their soldiers get shot at the border. 5 million people did not take that warning correctly. We're looking at a population of about 33 million people in Ukraine. That's a large percentage of the population that turned a blind eye to the scenario and the situation that was happening. And I think society has softened us. I think social media has softened us. What we take in through our eyes, it really just turned us into people that don't believe. And I get it. You can't believe what you see on TV. You can't believe everything you hear. But at some point, you got to have a pulse on what's going on. You can literally go online. There's agriculture satellites that you can view that are not tied to government. It's tied to agriculture. And you can see the border of Ukraine and Russia. and you can see that there was troops there. These are private owned satellites, agricultural satellites that I was getting my intel from in January. If you don't know what's out there, you don't have a pulse on what's happening. And like I said, this is all going to bleed in to each other. But that's the fourth reason. You become soft. We've become soft. It's time to harden up. Pause. We can look at society, we can look at Ukraine, and we can see that country had to harden up. The women are creating plate carriers for the men to wear. They're creating socks, they're creating the uniforms. The men are out there fighting. Some of the women are too. Their society had to shift. It looks like World War II out there. We need to become a hardened society. And we need to do it before an attack. The fifth reason why city people will fail during societal collapse is the lack of community. I live in a 200 unit apartment. I probably know 3 neighbors. I can blame it on me. I can blame it on them. I can blame it on the environment. But there's a lack of community within our society today. And like I said, it may just be a New England thing. It just may be that. But we don't care about our neighbors. I do. All right. But for the most part, we don't care about our neighbors. We mind our business. I had this friend from New York. I asked him this question. I said, what would you do if you saw 5 men on your street corner where you raise your children and your family selling drugs? He said, mind my business. Crazy. Because I know for a fact that I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't allow these men to go on the corner and commit crimes and create an atmosphere or environment where there's nothing but criminal activity in the place I raise my children. No, you will not be doing that here. And we have the police force that we can call. We can report these people, and we take a stand against it. There needs to be community policing. It needs to be heavy. We need to start focusing on things like that. Care about your neighbor, care about their kids. You see somebody breaking in their house, call the cops. I'm not telling you to become like a vigilante and go out there with your rifle and go figure out what's going on, but call the cops, call the neighbor. You don't want to call the cops because you feel like your police force in your town escalates more than they de-escalate, and you don't want someone to get killed, and I understand that. Then call the neighbor, get their number. Hey, there's so-and-so in the house. Is everything okay? Check on your neighbors. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't do that. We don't do it well. And that's part of the reason you cannot be a lone wolf. It's not going to be you and your family versus the world. When things collapse, you need people. And you need resources. And the only way people survive is in community. Time and time again, you will get washed out. You will face a community. The community is coming for your stuff if you do not have one of your own. I don't respect the lone prepper. So this is a call for all you lone preppers out there, which is you and your wife, or you and your dog, or your cat. If you're out there thinking you're gonna run and gun, scavenge, you're not gonna make it. You're not. You won't make it too far. You need a community. The more people you have, the better it is. Build your community now before things get bad, because you don't know who's what in a real bad scenario. Build them now and get your community up there. Join the New England Prepper Society. if you're from this area. Start by caring about your neighbor. Get the guy across the street's number, or the guy down the street. Be like-minded. Once you start being in a community, it's hard to break that up. We lack that in the prepper society. You see how it's more than just guns? This is very deep stuff. It's more than just who's got the latest nods, night vision, or thermal vision, or cry precision, jumpable vest. This ain't about that. This is about building a community, understanding how to take care of you and your family and your community, being self-sustaining, getting those skills back that you've given to the government, local government to do for you. Get those skills back. Learn how to plant, learn how to catch water, learn how to build shelter. Become a useful citizen. And then if things get bad, you do good. If things don't get bad, you're a useful person. There you have it. These are the 5 reasons why I think city people will die and shit hit the fan.